Trump's pledge to accept the election results comes with a twist.
If I win.
Trump says he reserves the right to contest a questionable result. We'll show you how that may affect the race. We'll also investigate evidence of voter fraud and Trump's claim about walling off Mexico.
Hillary Clinton wanted the wall.
He's right about that, and we'll show you how the plan to build a wall 10 years ago fell apart. Plus, John Wilson weighs in with his view. This is Money, Power, and Politics.
Well, for much of last night, Donald Trump turned in his strongest debate performance of the year. He had Hillary Clinton on the ropes for a while, particularly when she was trying to explain what she meant when she called for open trade and open borders. But the debate turned against Trump when he would not commit to supporting the results of the election.
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well, Trump supporters point out that Al Gore also questioned what happened in 2000, and we certainly had suspense that year. For example, New York Times headline, Bush is declared winner in Florida, but Gore vows to contest results. And other Democrats also questioned the results in Ohio in 2004. So they're saying, wait a minute, it's okay for Gore, but it's not okay for Trump to say, we'll just have to wait and see. The problem for Trump here is that he did not phrase it that way. It may work for him if he had prefaced his remarks by saying if there was a recount scenario, for example. He'll keep us in suspense because we'll all be in suspense. But he said he'll keep us in suspense after claiming there is tremendous voter fraud. And that's how this one moment from the debate pulled focus and puts Trump at odds once again on both sides.
I'll keep you in suspense.
Now, to Trump's point, voter fraud does in fact exist in this country and in this state. And in just a couple of minutes, we'll show you the evidence we found in our series of investigations. But the problem for Trump, again, is that leaders in both parties say it is not widespread, as Trump has claimed. In fact, even Trump's own campaign manager contradicted him before the debate.
Do you believe there will be widespread voter fraud?
No, I do not believe that.
But then after Trump said he won't commit to supporting the election results necessarily, his campaign manager had to change her tune.
You've got millions of people, apparently, we read the stories, millions of people who are dead, who are still in the rolls.
So then where does this take us? Well, we already have the ugliest race in modern history with the two most unpopular candidates in recent history, with voters on both sides worked up in rage, many of them. And now Trump set the stage for maybe taking it far beyond election night, which is bad news for people who just want this race to end. And the two sides are already going back and forth, like we saw with Jesse Jackson and Donald Trump Jr.
If we lose in a fair fight, sir, we're happy with that. But it has to be a fair fight.
Who will determine fair in this?
I think we'll have to see.
Well, keep in mind, Trump's running mate Mike Pence did say they will absolutely accept the results no matter what, repeatedly on the networks.
We will absolutely accept the results of the election.
And Trump's own daughter, Ivanka, said Trump would accept the results. So maybe here Trump just doesn't want to show his hand. He wrote about that in The Art of the Deal, how not mapping out your next steps gives you leverage. But once again, at the very least, Trump is raising questions about the integrity of the election. Election managers here in Florida say we're good. There are safeguards in place. And the people who do try to cheat the system are just a minuscule part of the electorate. And Republican Governor John Kasich said Trump's concerns about, quote, tremendous fraud are just silly.
Look, to say that elections are rigged and all these votes are stolen, that's like saying we never landed on the moon, frankly. That's how silly it is.
But while cases of fraud may in fact be very few and far between in the scope of things, to Trump's point, again, it does happen. For example, we have records that show one man voted in Tennessee in person, then mailed in an absentee ballot in Florida and North Carolina. That's the last election cycle. He was arrested last year after our first investigation of voter fraud. And tonight we have more examples of people voting and then voting again in the same election.
When state lawmakers passed new voter laws and when Governor Scott ordered a voter purge, they said they were trying to snuff out fraud.
We also don't want people that don't have a right to vote to be voting.
But my colleague Mike Sinan and I worked on an investigation that revealed a problem those efforts would likely have missed. People voting in multiple states in the same election.
And I support my people in North Carolina, I support my people here.
That's Mike asking a voter in the Orlando area why records from 2012, the last presidential year, show he voted in Florida and North Carolina.
Because I live both in places. In North Carolina, I pay taxes in North Carolina, I do the same thing here.
He said he didn't know you're not supposed to do that.
Well, I didn't know that.
As Mike knocked on doors in Orlando, I found 6 others in Hillsborough, 7 in Pinellas County who, according to public records, voted in Florida and North Carolina in 2012. And with public records provided by the Voter Integrity Project, our list grew to 149 people who appeared to have voted in Florida and North Carolina in the same election.
We were able to find 149 that we could stake our reputation on, turn them over to the authorities and say, you might want to investigate this.
We did that last November. The state's Division of Elections told us they had launched a preliminary investigation and left it at that. But a year after our initial investigation, authorities in North Carolina did take action.
Finally, we get our first prosecution.
The district attorney in Rutherford County, North Carolina, sent me these records showing he had successfully prosecuted Pasco Parker from Pasco County. Records show he admitted to voting in 2012, not just in 2 states, but in 3, Florida and North Carolina and Tennessee. He got a suspended sentence, probation, and a fine, and his case may be just the start.
There'll be another one, another Florida, North Carolina one, and there are several more that we know that are in the pipeline between Florida and North Carolina. This is the first one, and finally it begins.
The Department of State says it takes this very seriously, but Florida cannot fully participate in the multi-state cross-checks because of differences in public records laws. And Eric Shawn shows us how we have a problem that goes far beyond Florida.
A 2012 Pew study found a staggering number of people registered in more than one state, 2.75 million, and 68,000 registered in 3 states. While others say voter fraud is extremely rare and the names of possible double voters are really just clerical errors or coincidences, the cases are shocking. In Wisconsin, Robert Monroe was sentenced to jail a few months ago after he was charged with 13 counts of election fraud. Prosecutors say he voted twice in the 2012 presidential race, first by absentee ballot in Shorewood, Wisconsin. Then, on Election Day, he drove 4 hours south to Lebanon, Indiana, where, using an Indiana driver's license, he voted in person. In Maryland, a Democratic candidate for Congress, Wendy Rosen, was caught. Party officials said she illegally voted twice in 2 states. In California, people voted twice in the presidential primary this past June.
Election fraud is a crime against the entire American public. It is a crime against our Constitution and a crime against the foundations of our nation.
And this year, particularly with foreign hackers meddling in campaign emails, it's also raised the question of whether hackers can tamper with voting machines. So we looked at some of the machines in other parts of the country, and we asked if hackers can really switch someone's vote. And that's where, once again, Eric Shawn continues our investigation.
Princeton University professor Andrew Appel says a touchscreen voting machine, the type used in about 10 states, can be tampered with.
The back door.
In 2008, he demonstrated how, as part of an election lawsuit against New Jersey officials. While he notes there has been no documented case of a machine actually being hacked this way in a U.S. election, he says it could happen by simply swapping the machine's computer chip for his own. He was able to change the votes the machine counted.
I figured out how to make a slightly different computer program that just before the close of the polls, it shifts some votes around from one candidate to another.
Our experience here in this office, we all concur that we have not seen one documented case in machine being compromised.
John Brzezowski, the deputy superintendent of elections in Hudson County, New Jersey, insists in real life it cannot be done. He points to multiple redundant safeguards that protect machines. They are locked in secure areas under camera surveillance, and broken security tape on vital parts would show any violation.
I don't know how you could possibly do that to 500 machines and get the secrecy and the time to do so. I don't believe that's possible.
But the professor insists it is.
The good news is it's not something you can easily do from Russia. The bad news is that it really is possible to do locally.
The voting machine company Dominion said that demonstration is not a credible test because it was not an actual election. Check out our full series of investigations of voting on our YouTube channel. Search for Craig Patrick's Money, Power, and Politics and click subscribe at the top of the page. You'll also find our investigations of government spending, our parody and satire segments, and prior shows you may have missed.
Coming up,
Hillary Clinton wanted the wall.
We'll show you what Trump was talking about and how the plan to build a wall 10 years ago fell apart and burned taxpayers. Then John Wilson weighs in with his view.
want to get everybody out of the shadows, get the economy working.
Trump and Clinton are miles apart on the issue of illegal immigration, and it showed in their final debate.
We're a country of laws. We either have a border or we don't.
But in an interesting moment, Trump said Hillary Clinton once agreed with him on building a wall on our southern border.
Hillary Clinton wanted the wall. Hillary Clinton fought for the wall.
So we want to show you what Trump was talking about. Let's flash back to the failed plan to build a wall in 2006. Charlie LaDuff shows us what went wrong.
A gigantic 2,000-mile wall along the Mexican border. The cost, $80 billion by some estimates. If the Great Wall of China didn't work, how will this one? So we went to Brownsville, Texas, where the federal government actually started building one a few years ago. That is, until the government ran out of money.
Secure Fence Act is part of our efforts to reform our immigration system. We have more to do.
The first thing you notice is the border wall isn't on the border at all. Not in Texas. Because of treaties and flooding, they had to build a wall miles off the natural border, the Rio Grande River, which stretches 1,200 miles. And the Americans on the wrong side of the fence, they live in a no man's land of human smugglers and narco trafficking.
We don't go down the river anymore because it's quite dangerous, but the last time we went down, they have their boats lined up along the river to bring people across. Day or night, it makes no difference here.
Are you afraid?
No. We've had every dog poisoned. They poison the dogs so they won't bark.
And this is new since that?
It makes no difference.
It's all new now because of this fence?
Well,
because they come this way?
There's gaps in the fence, you know, it's not a complete deal.
And nobody builds walls better than me, believe me. If you think Trump's wall is the work of the Tea Party, then think again.
I know who voted. Bernie voted for it. I know he did.
And Hillary.
And Hillary voted for it too.
And Obama.
Yeah. And Obama voted, yeah.
This used to be a golf club until the government walled it off from the United States. It didn't stop illegals from using it as a right-of-way. It did stop golfers from coming. And after 28 years, the owner went bankrupt.
I saw some guys cross. Now, when we turned over here, I'd seen some guys climb the fence, the actual fence. It shouldn't be comical. It shouldn't be something to laugh at because, you know, that was our money. All those millions is spent. But it almost was because it's like, didn't even slow them down.
Border Patrol says a wall can be useful for funneling smugglers away from city centers, but you can still go around it, or over it, or under it. And remember the Central American women and children from 2 years ago pouring in over the Texas border, the stuff of international headlines? Well, they're back at about the same numbers. But this year, well, we've got another TV reality show. And though these Central Americans arrived from Mexico, the Mexican government refuses to take the Central Americans back. Maybe we should start there, says Congressman Henry Cuellar of Texas.
We do have that agreement already with Mexico. We can return them back pretty quickly.
If they're Mexican.
If they're Mexican, there you go. That's the key. But anybody else, you have to go through a different process.
Forget about the wall or the people who live in the interior of the United States and came illegally, says National Border Patrol Council Vice President Chris Cabrera. He says we're releasing 70% of the people currently apprehended at the border today.
So we got the same problem we had 2 years ago when it was all over the news.
Yeah.
Same number of people.
Exactly.
You've done nothing.
Nothing, not at all.
Except talk about a wall.
Yeah, talk about a wall, talk about sending them home, talk about enforcing the law. Unfortunately, none of it's been done.
A bunch of men's voices talking in here, Spanish. But they're not coming out and I'm not going in there. They'll wait till night. Hope they know that old lady's got a gun.
Silence in Washington and voices in the bush. Families sometimes, dope dealers, or worse. Either way, they're coming. Wall or no wall.
Coming up, we'll drill into the immigration debate with perspective from John Wilson.
This is John Wilson's My View now.
Please welcome John Wilson. Thank you once again for joining us.
Yes, sir.
So Jeb Bush said that if Donald Trump becomes president, that wall, by gosh, is never getting built. Mexico's not going to pay for it because it's not going to get built. Does he have a point?
And George Bush says he's going to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, we got a mess, don't we? We have a mess. Is it going to get built? Well, who knows? I don't. That's one of the issues. We don't know what to believe. All we know is the status quo is not working.
We also know that somehow the federal government granted citizenship to hundreds, if not more, of illegal immigrants who were supposed to be deported by mistake. That tells us we've got bigger problems than just keeping people out with a wall.
We're not sure it's 11 or 12 million undocumented workers in this country now. We don't know that for sure. There's no way to count them. We've allowed that, and it's not just President Obama. This has been going on for years. You know, this is not a recent issue here. It started when people started allowing so many immigrants to come into this country who would favor them at the ballot box. That's what we did.
So you have Republican administrations who for years have tried to make some changes, and Democrats who for decades have tried to make changes. They just keep doing this. After the election, no matter who gets elected, can they figure out anything, or does this just go on?
Let's say it doesn't matter who wins the election. Now, of course, it certainly does, but let's say it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? It doesn't matter because they're going to be helpless to do anything without the approval of Congress. So what do we have now? We have a deadlocked Congress. That's going to change because there's also an election for Congress that's taking place at the same time. They've got to be able to get together here. That's where it's going to be decided. It's going to be decided at the Capitol building.
And voters will decide that in November.
Yes.
John, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coming up, new projections in the race to the White House and the battle for the House and Senate.
Okay, let's start with the current state of the race. Right now, an average of polls shows Hillary Clinton leading by more than 6 points. No candidate has been behind by that margin and ultimately come out to win in the end, which seems to bode well for Hillary Clinton. In particular, you have projections like 538.com now giving Hillary Clinton an 87% chance of winning the White House. Of course, Donald Trump is hoping that those polls are wrong and that he can do a better job of motivating his base to get out and vote. Meanwhile, Republicans are concerned about control of Congress. You have forecasts slightly favoring Democrats in the battle for the Senate. And while the House, you have a 60-seat gap right now in favor of Republicans. Right now, Republican leaders are concerned about the possibility of losing the House. To their favor, you need 218 seats to control the chamber, and the current forecasts show Republicans holding that at 224. That is our show. We'll have new poll numbers from Fox 13 and our pollster Matt Towery tomorrow night. Take care.